Good evening. I hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday and in this hot summer, and hope you're enjoying the I am statements of Jesus. So far we looked at John 6, and we looked at him being the bread of life. We looked at John 8, and he says, I'm the light of the world. Tonight we're going to look at John 10. And it's kind of interesting as we've been going through these, and I'll point this out as we go through the chapter. Jesus is kind of comparing himself. If you stop and think about it, in John 8, you remember John 8:58, Jesus said, before Abraham was, I am. And he compares himself to the light of the world. John 6, he talks about being the bread of life, and he compares himself to Moses. Tonight, John 10, we're actually going to be looking at the Good Shepherd. Well, we know from Psalm 23 that David wrote that the Lord is our shepherd. And so it's almost as if he's taking all the three big heroes of the Old Testament, the Israelites, Abraham, Moses, David, and he's saying, I'm better than them. What Moses gave you, even though it was the Father that gave you the manna, I am the bread of life that sustains you for all your days. What Abraham was, a light into the nations as far as Israel and the promise that was supposed to come through Genesis 12, Jesus is saying, no, I am the light of the world. Then he says, we are the light of the world as well. And so today, John chapter 10, there are actually two I am statements. We're only going to look at one in depth. The first one is John 10:7. And Jesus says, I am the door for the sheep, or I am the gate for the sheep. And basically he's saying he is the only way for the sheep to enter into the sheep pen. The reason I'm not going to go much in depth on that is when we get to John 14, Jesus is going to say, I am the way, the truth, the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. Jesus is saying in John 10, John 14, that I am the only way for salvation. And we'll cover that more in depth when we get to that last I am statement. But today, I want us to look at John chapter 10, verse 11. But before we do that, we really need to take a look at what verse 10 is saying. Verse 10 says, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But I have come that they may have life, and that they would have it more abundantly. Now, the question I got just as soon as I read verse 10 is, how do I have this more abundant life? Well, I think it's found in verse 11. Verse 11 is how we know how to have that abundant life. Jesus says this, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. In other words, what we're seeing there is, how do we have this abundant life? Well, you got to go to the good shepherd. Who is the good shepherd? It is Jesus. Now, all throughout the Bible, whether it's the Old Testament or the New Testament, God always refers to us as sheep. That is not a compliment, but it is true. You know, when you stop and think about it, sheep were dirty. I don't mean to be ugly when I say this. Sheep were dumb. Sheep are defenseless. And yes, I want you to know, sheep are dependent. Sheep are so dependent upon that shepherd for everything. Left unto its own, it'll either get killed by a wolf, it'll walk into a ditch, it might even get too close to water and drown. Sheep are just so dependent upon its shepherd. Christian, we're the same way. We need to be so dependent upon God for his grace each and every day, for his mercy. And Jesus is saying, I'm the good shepherd. I will lead you. I will guide you. Now, when Jesus says that he is the good shepherd, it's revealing a couple of things. One is it reveals his character. That word good there in the Greek, it means something of value, something of beauty. But really, when you boil it down, it means absolutely no defect whatsoever. So when Jesus says, I am the good shepherd, he is saying, I can't do bad. Nothing I do is bad. That's how good the good shepherd is. It's a standard of perfection. I believe so. We're seeing his character. I believe when you look at John chapter 10 and you see Jesus say, I am the good shepherd, it reveals his care. Notice he knows our name. He speaks to us. He calls us. He leads us. He guides us. He provides for us. He defends us. You're seeing the very care of the Good Shepherd. But also, when you look at John chapter 10, you're going to see his cross as well. John chapter 10, verse 18 is one of my favorite verses, because in there, you kind of come to know who was it that killed Jesus. And the thing of it is, it wasn't the Jews. It wasn't the Romans. No, Jesus says in John 10:18, I'm the good shepherd, I lay down my life. And he says this, I have the authority to lay it down. No one, absolutely no one takes it from me. But then he also says this, but I also have the authority to take it back up. So Jesus is basically saying there, the good shepherd has come to die on a cross. The good shepherd has come to lay down his life so that we who are sheep can now be in the sheep pen. And I love this. Get this now. The good shepherd is also the Lamb of God. And that's the beauty of what Jesus is saying here when he says he lays down his life for his friends. Now, I want you to see also, as you go through John chapter 10 on your own, you're going to see Jesus is not a hireling. You see, a hireling is just somebody who goes along. As soon as danger comes up, they're hidden for the hills. In fact, when they will leave the sheep basically by themselves, and it's devastating. If a wolf comes up, they're not going to defend themselves. They're not going to go after that. Now, why is it that Jesus can say he's the shepherd? Well, I think there's a couple of things that figure into that. Number one is, we talked about it, it's his character. But I want you to think about it from another angle. Have you ever noticed that when you pay for something or something is yours, you normally take better care of it? I'll give you an example of this. My son Nate, very, very mechanically inclined. He loves to take stuff apart and he loves to build it back. He recently bought a little small mini motorcycle. Don't know why. We've never been too many motorcycle people, but he bought a mini motorbike, tore the engine down, rebuilt it, and ended up just refixing the whole thing. Now, Nate has gone out and has bought himself his own tools. He's got a couple of impact wrenches. He's got a couple of all kinds of things because he's always working on his car. So he's bought a pretty nice set of tools. I want you to know, when Nate gets his tools out, and man, he gets through with them, he puts them back in the case, he closes it, he dusts it off, he makes sure that, man, that thing is taken care of. Those tools are pristine. But what does he do when he borrows mine? Oh, he just chunks them, and next thing I know, I'm trying to find just a wrench, a hammer. Anybody seen my wrench? Anybody seen this? Anybody? Well, no, and I know who's had it. And I know who hasn't put it back where it's supposed to be in an organized place. But when it comes to his tools, oh man, you don't even touch them. They are in the exact spot each and every day. As soon as he gets through, man, he takes care of them. What's the difference? He paid for them. You know, I submit for your consideration that part of the reason that Jesus cares so much for us and God loves us so much is, yes, he proved it through the cross, but because now you are his sheep, he guides us, he leads us, he cares for us, he protects us, he looks after us. So a couple of things I want you to take with you, if you will. As the good shepherd, here's three things Jesus gives us. Number one, he gives us redemption. Here's how I know. Because he paid our price. When he says the good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. Jesus redeemed us. He redeemed us from the fall. He redeemed us from sin. He saved us through his death. The second thing is this. He gives us a relationship. The shepherd loves the sheep. And he calls them. I love this. He knows them by name. You ever had anybody forget your name? As a pastor, I have so many people that I have to know, and sometimes you walk up to someone and you think you have trouble remembering someone's name. Man, try to memorize a whole church's. It is almost impossible, and you're trying to remember what their name is, especially when you just met them last week, and that was in passing. It's hard, but you know what? Jesus never forgets our name. He knows them. He calls them by name. In other words, I wrote down a couple of things. He provides, he pilots, he protects, and he pursues us. But there's a third thing that being the good shepherd does for us is the resurrection. Jesus said, I lay down my life. I have the authority. No one takes it from me. And if I have the authority to lay it back down, I have the authority to take it back up. In other words, Jesus is calling a shot. Jesus is saying, yeah, I came to die. I came to lay down my life for the sheep, but I'm going to be raised again. Now, here's the truth. A sheep will follow a shepherd to the ends of the earth. I like to think of it this way. Jesus tasted death for us. He died in our place, but don't leave him in that tomb. No, 3 days later, God raised him from the dead. In other words, the payment for our sin was accepted. Now, where the sheep goes, or the shepherd goes, the sheep follow. When we come to the end of our life, we breathe our last. If you know the shepherd in a personal relationship with Jesus, I promise you, there's going to be a resurrection. We will be where the shepherd is. What a beautiful, beautiful statement when he says, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for his friend. Pray that you're enjoying these I am statements. I look forward to the next one as we look at the resurrection and the life, and then the way, the truth, and the life. And yes, we wrap it up with the true vine. Take care. God bless.